Welcome to Wine Soundtrack South Africa. Listen to the passion with which producers narrate their winery and their world. In 30 answers, discover their stories, personalities, and passions.
Hello, friends and listeners of Wine Soundtrack. This is Marina Kalo, and today I'm joined by Dirk from Black Oystercatcher Wines. A very warm welcome to you, Dirk. Please, will you just tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity. I was born and bred in the area. My kids are the first generation in the area, so our family's been here for a long time. And traditionally cereal and stock farmers. And then in the late 90s, I think 98, we started planting the first vineyards. The very first vineyards were planted in 96 in the area. 97, 98 by my neighbors and myself. We then joined forces, and we had one communal brand called Anne's End, which we established those days, and all our grapes went into the one brand. But soon enough, we had more grapes than we could sell through the one brand, and we each started our own brands. That's basically where Black Oystercatcher comes from.
Okay. And so tell me, Black Oystercatcher, if I was to look on a map of South Africa, where would I find it?
Well, we're at the southernmost tip of Africa. As a crow flies, probably about 30 kilometers from the southern tip of Africa, with the west coast being about 15 kilometers from us and the east coast about 20.
And tell me, Dirk, how many acres of land are you currently farming?
I don't know acres. You get big acres and small acres and US acres.
Let's go with hectares, sorry.
But hectares, the farm is about 1,500 hectares. The vineyards at this stage, the farm is 30 hectares. Only 11 hectares currently in production. But we are in the process of planting, and the idea is to, within the next 3 years, have the full 30 hectares planted. The rest of the farm is still farmed with cereals and stock. And we also have a big wetland on the farm. We've got hippo and buffalo and eland and a whole lot of game in there, which is we form part of a bigger group, which is a conservation group of all the landowners, 23, a total of 46,000 hectares, of which about 22,000 hectares is natural land. And the whole idea is that we need to farm in harmony with nature. We're not a conservation unit per se, but we conserve what we're farming, and I think the idea is to farm better and to farm greener, with the outlook being to fence in our intensive areas and leave all the rest open, as opposed to fencing nature in, which is a little bit of a different viewpoint on it.
It definitely is a different take on things, and I've had the pleasure of, on a previous visit to the area, going to see where the wetlands were. I wasn't lucky enough to spot one of the hippos, but I believe there are a number of them, and definitely something for our listeners to keep in mind if they ever were to come out to this part of the world, which is really something to experience, I would say, if you made your way to South Africa. What is your annual production like of wine, roughly?
We do about 10,000 to 12,000 cases by 6, so it's very small.
And then at present, we were chatting before the interview, obviously Black Oystercatcher as a brand has certainly garnered some traction here in the local market. Are you present in any international markets?
Very small. We've got a little bit of wine in the UK and some in Sweden, a little bit in America, but that doesn't account for even 2-3%. So we're pretty much local, and our main focus, being small and boutique, is to attract people to the farm and to trade on the farm.
Now, I know you love your whiskey. However, is there a moment, like a seminal moment, that you might have had relating to wine where you thought, oh, this is interesting, maybe when you were younger or anything like that?
No, I sort of just grew into wine. Obviously, after we started planting vineyards, I don't come from a wine background. I didn't study wine or viticulture. I've always been a grower, so I can grow stuff, and that sort of comes naturally. It's been in our family. So out of that view, it was good, and it was amazing to make wine, and actually tasted like wine. And then from there we grew, and And today I think our Sauvignon specifically is world class and really specials. Sauvignon Semillon, also Shiraz from our area is very distinct.
So tell me, what is the most expensive bottle of Black Oystercatcher wine? What's in it and what does it cost?
I think at this stage I made up 3 wines. So I believe that our Sauvignon, 3 Sauvignons of different soil types. And the idea was that people always comment on the complexity of our wines and the extreme minerality. And walking in the vineyards and you taste the grapes, you can literally taste the grapes taste different. We've got 3 major soil types being iron ferrocrete, broken shale and quartzite. And I went and hand selected off the different soil types and I made a barrel of each. And it's like chalk and cheese. So that we sell that at 1,500 Rand for the set. And I did it a once off just to see what it was. Didn't know that there would be a difference or not. And I was very, very surprised by the vast difference that came out. And I think that's quite a unique thing, and the idea was to showcase why the complexity is, because these soil types aren't different in different blocks. You literally find them within 5 meters from each other. And I think that attributes to the complexity, because there's such a majority of vast array of flavors that and characteristics that come from these different soils.
I think it is interesting, and I think that's where the whole terroir-specific focus that we're seeing, certainly here in South Africa, but also in other parts of the world, is, it really comes to the fore. Tell me, what is your opinion of wine critics and wine scores and competition?
You shouldn't ask me that. I don't do any competitions. I've got nothing against it. But yeah, I think, I'd rather personally try and get my wine to the consumer and let the consumer decide for himself.
And then as a consumer for yourself, what do you enjoy drinking? Do you enjoy red, white, sparkling wine? If you were off the farm and had to pick something off a wine list, where would you go?
I would go Sauvignon, and obviously a red. I quite like the Shiraz from my area. Rhone style Shiraz I think will suit, and obviously we mainly Sauvignon Blanc producers, and I love Sauvignon Blanc.
That's kind of handy. Okay, I'm going to be presumptive, but I'm going to presume here that you might have had the odd opportunity where you have overindulged. Do you have a hangover cure that you can share with us?
Bacon and eggs.
Something fatty that just sticks to your ribs. Okay. What would you say a non-drinker would lose out by not drinking your wine?
It's a difficult one. I think the journey of a glass of wine, when you pour it, and as the temperature goes up, the characteristic changes as the different esters becomes volatile, it's all volatile acids. And I think that to me is so great about wine. Even our wine, the one day you taste it and you want to cut your wrist, and the next day the wine tastes completely different, because wine is a living thing. And I think that it's not Coca-Cola, with all due respect, but it's not all the same every day. Even the same wine is not the same every time, and different company, different flavors. So I like that.
I think even your mood affects the way a wine will taste. And then there's obviously many people who believe in the lunar cycle, that the moon has an effect on the flavor of wine. And I think I kind of agree with that. So we're sitting here in the tasting room at Black Oystercatcher, and across the road from us is a landing strip. However, today on this landing strip lands not a small Cessna aircraft, but a UFO. And in the UFO is a bunch of space aliens. They've been traveling from far for a long time, and they are thirsty. What would you pour them to drink?
I think I'll start them with a glass of wine. We might end with whiskey.
I like that. Do you have any good luck rituals or anything that you do during harvest or when harvest is about to start with your team? Anything like that?
No, my philosophy is, we should make wine and farm grapes with the least possible interference. So we just take it as it comes.
And when you were little, obviously you grew up in a farming family. Is that where you saw yourself being a farmer, or did you have other dreams as a little Dirk?
Yeah, no, never anything different than a farmer. And I must say, winemaking. I saw this wonderful picture. I think it's a painting of. I wanted to be a winemaker, and then it's got all these. It's chaos on this thing. It's got papers and it's got legalities and it's got this and that, and in the end it just says at the bottom. And I thought I was going to make wine, So, yeah, a wonderful journey for me from just being a farmer and a cereal and cattle farmer and sheep, which I love and I still love. Making wine and farming vineyards, establishing a brand is challenging. And it's very far from the romance of making wine. It's a business, and there's an immense workload on admin and everything, which you never think of when you start. When you think of making wine, and you're gonna love the wine, but there's a lot of stuff.
There's a major part of running a business and being a businessman behind that, There's the marketing and the sales and the legalities, as you say, and the paperwork. So, yeah, it stems way beyond all of that. When you're not working and farming, what takes up your free time?
Well, most probably fishing and hunting, not necessarily in that order, and cooking. Mm-hmm. I love cooking.
Okay. And tell me, speaking of cooking, do you have any hard and fast rules or tips or anything in terms of pairing food with wine? Or is it kind of like just do what you feel works for you and, go with the flow and play around?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's very difficult. I like to sometimes go opposites, So if you've got a lean wine, do a fatty food with it, or vice versa, pair them together. I don't know. I think it's a question of you got to go with what works for you.
And do you follow any sporting teams, sporting individuals, that kind of thing?
No, not really individuals. We're all rugby players or ex-rugby players, and like to follow the rugby.
Okay. So, which rugby team do you support?
Well, it's obviously the Stormers, and obviously the Springboks. So.
And if the Springboks were to win a big match, I think they're playing Wales tomorrow, in fact, which of your wines would you give to the team to congratulate them?
I'll probably give them the MCC. We make an MCC which is 100% Merlot based, which is quite unique.
That is very unique indeed. Okay, what would you say would be one of the best pieces of advice you could give us?
Give you?
Our listeners.
You got to drink wine.
Copious amounts, preferably, right?
No, not all at once, but we got to get there.
What sort of wines do you think will be drunk in the year 2300?
That's very interesting. I grew up in a family where we, like I said, we didn't come from a wine background. And I often say, if you think what our parents drank on average in South Africa as a wine consumer, I don't think we'll touch that wine now, or most of it. I'm talking about the majority of the wine. So yes, I think tastes evolve, and what we are drinking now, we most probably will look and taste a lot different in 20 or 30 or 50 years' time. The classic wines will stay classic, but I think on average, I don't know how it's going to change, but I think it will be different.
Yeah, I think we're definitely seeing a move towards more elegant, slightly lighter alcohol, that kind of thing. But it is, I've often pondered this question myself. You and the aliens have had a roaring time drinking whiskey and wine. There's a song there. And they've invited you to join them back in the UFO. They want to go and show you their world and their drinks. But they've asked you to bring 3 bottles of wine with you. Any 3 bottles in the world on this journey to take back to their people. Which wines would you take?
I'll take my 2007, 2009, and 2013 Sauvignon Blanc with.
Very, very cool. And that will certainly give them a really good insight into South African Sauvignon Blanc, that's for sure. Is there a winemaking area anywhere in the world that you think you'd like to explore?
I'd like to go to Spain. I've been to Sancerre, Polyforme, and I'd really like to go and visit that again, specifically with a view on Sauvignon, Semillon. Yeah.
Very interesting areas, and Sancerre in particular with the Polyforme. Very cool. Okay, we're almost done. However, before we finish, I'd like to play a little game. I'm going to name 3 varietals or varieties, and I'd like you to pair each one with a song. Either a song or a music artist or a genre even that you feel best represents the variety. So, I'm going to have to start with Sauvignon Blanc.
I've got no idea. You bowled me. I'll probably go... no, you lost me on that one.
Lost you on that one. Okay. What about Semillon?
Bob Seger.
Okay. So something a little bit deeper and kind of more soulful. Okay. Then what about Shiraz?
Johnny Cash.
That was quick. You knew that one. That was easy. Right. Dirk, it was an absolute pleasure chatting to you this morning. Before we sign off, please can you just share with our listeners where we can find Black Oystercatcher online, perhaps on social media, and what they can expect if they ever were to come and visit you here at the Black Oystercatcher brand home.
We obviously on the farm we open Tuesdays to Saturdays. All our information is on the website www.blackoystercatcher.co.za, and then we've got an online shop on the website where you can buy the wines. And also you can, if you want to do a game drive and go to you can also book that through our website. And we can pretty much get the wine to you anywhere in the world. So you can order it, you can contact us, you can mail us, you can buy it direct online. We'll see that you get the wine.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. It was an absolute pleasure chatting to you today, and all the best.
Thanks for listening to a new episode of Wine Soundtrack South Africa. For details and updates, visit our website winesoundtrack.com.